Urban legends abound about babysitting stories of terror and horror. Stories of phone calls coming from the inside of the house, of just breathing. Then there are the scary clown sightings at the window, and when the police arrive, no one is there. There are burglaries and break-ins by criminals and desperate drug addicts. And there are those whispered tales of serial killers who jump out of closets and strangle unsuspecting sitters. You'd think that any young girl who wished to be a babysitter to make a few bucks on a weekend had a death wish, when the reality is that the only thing likely to kill a sitter is boredom. Most of my babysitting assignments are fun, playing with good kids, putting them to bed, and watching TV until their parents come home. Sure, occasionally I have had a difficult child who didn't want to sleep or who was unruly, but that's just normal behavior for children that age. It never bothered me, and I can handle them with the care they need. I did have a babysitting situation with one family that ended in a terrifying experience. I had never babysat for this family before, even though I knew the family from my church. Their daughter was in the first grade religious class, and I was the student assistant on Sunday mornings. She's an adorable tiny thing with a bubbling personality. She's as cute as she can be, talking a mile a minute with great animation. Her parents were very social and friendly with everyone in the church. Her mom was in the choir, and her dad always passed the collection basket during the offering. Great people. Well, after service one Sunday, they asked me if I was available to watch Bella the following Saturday night at their home while they went to a dinner party. I happily said yes. Bella would be a delight to babysit. I'd have fun and make some easy money. I arrived on Saturday at the appointed hour. They reviewed a few house rules, mostly about what Bella could and could not eat, the bedtime ritual of brushing her teeth and saying prayers, the hourly rate they would pay me, how late they expected to be, and an emergency contact number. It was all very brief, and they were off. Bella and I played with her Barbie, a couple of hands of Old Maid and Chutes and Ladders before she prepared for bed. Bella was honestly one of the easiest sitting jobs I'd ever had. She was in bed at dark, and I was settled in front of the TV to spend the next several hours chatting with friends. At 9 o'clock, Domino's delivered a pizza Mr. Anderson had ordered for me before they left. Like I said, they are such nice people. Only a few parents order your favorite pizza for you when you're babysitting their asleep kids. He even left me a couple of bucks to tip the delivery driver. How thoughtful is that? The delivery guy rang the doorbell, so I grabbed the tip money and went to the door. As I opened the door, I saw the pizza delivery guy snap his head to the left as he was startled by something. He handed me the pizza, but his gaze was on the bushes along the side of the house. I asked him, "Is everything okay?" as I also look in the direction of his eyes. But I see nothing, just dark bushes. He says, "It's nothing. I'm just tired and my eyes are playing tricks on me. Thanks for the tip." I put it aside as probably a cat or something, but the pizza smelled awfully good, so I returned to the TV with my dinner. There were these floor-to-ceiling glass windows in the living room where the TV was. I had pulled the huge curtains, but a foot of the glass remained visible, and from the couch I could see out into the yard. At one point, my eyes were drawn to this window, and I swear I saw a dark shape moving just outside the glass. As my eyes focused on the shadow, my mind started to freak out. I stared into the darkness beyond the glass, but had that bizarre feeling that someone was looking in on me. I had been relaxed all evening, but now I was super paranoid that someone was watching me who may have had some not-so-good intentions. I quickly ran around the house, checking the doors and windows, which were locked tight. I took a quick peek in on Bella to make sure she was in bed asleep. As a precaution, I carried my cell phone with Mr. Anderson's emergency contact a thumb press away. Thoughts passed through my mind. Should I call 911? I was sure I saw someone, but I was afraid to cry wolf and have the police come and look around and find no one and just go away only to have some perp return. Then I would call again and they would not respond right away. I decided that I should only call 911 if I was threatened. I'm trying to rationalize why I didn't just call the police. All my friends said that they would have called the police the instant they saw someone at the window. It's just strange. I was sure I saw someone, but it was a shadow. It's not like I was face to face with Freddy Krueger. It could have been my imagination, with shadows playing tricks on me. The windows and doors were locked, the house alarm was on, and I had the pepper spray from my coat pocket that my dad always insisted I carry whenever I was alone at night. If some pervert was lurking around the house and happened to get in, I'd give him a shot he wouldn't forget. I'd pepper spray him and dial the police at the same instant. I sat on the couch, half watching the TV and half keeping an eye out the window. After an hour, I relaxed and went into the kitchen for a Pepsi that the Andersons said I was welcome to drink, just not for Bella before bedtime. As I turned on the kitchen light, I saw the same shape in the kitchen window and felt him fixated on me. I snapped the light off, ducked down, and pressed the emergency number. I don't know what possessed me at this moment, but I had an intense need to protect Bella. And then I did perhaps the stupidest thing I could have done in that moment. Ran out the kitchen door into the backyard, screaming that the police were coming. The house alarm sounded as the door opened. I ran smack into the shadow figure who grabbed me by my wrist. I kicked him hard, pointed my pepper spray directly into his face, and pressed the trigger. A man rolled on the ground, and I could hear the distant sound of police sirens. I kicked the blinded man as hard as I could. I shouted, "Not on my watch, you creep!" In a minute, the police arrived and took the man into custody. But here is the twist. It was Mr. Anderson. To make a long story short, Mr. Anderson, after dropping his wife off at the party, decided to return home to see what kind of babysitter I was. So he peered into the windows to watch me with Bella. He wanted to assure himself that I was putting Bella first. I guess he found out. He offered me twice the pay to stay after the police released him. He wasn't trespassing or anything, as it was his home. I refused the money and left. I'll never babysit for that family again. I was terrified, but gave my all to save their child. Maybe I didn't do all the right things, but I gave it all I could. When I was in high school, I was the babysitter for 2 boys. Hamlet was 7 and his brother Tomas was 5. Hamlet was the easiest and obeyed instructions. Tomas was rambunctious and a little more challenging to settle down. Instructions went in one ear and out the other with Tomas. He had a mind of his own. He was very creative and played well by himself. By himself means only one real boy, himself, and many imaginary friends. An overactive imagination if there ever was one. For months, I had babysat as a regular for this family. Their mom was a single parent and income earner. She was a surgical nurse, so her hours were unpredictable. So often evenings and nights required me to stay. The neighborhood was newly constructed and their house was a 4-bedroom, so when I stayed the night, I had my own room, and the kids both had their rooms. One night, I put Tomas to bed at his regular bedtime of 9 o'clock and played Chutes and Ladders with Hamlet until bedtime. We had spun the spinner only a few times when Tomas began crying for me. I paused the game with Hamlet and went upstairs to Tomas's room. As I entered, Tomas was sitting on his pillow, pointing to his closet and crying, "There's a monster in there!" I chuckled to myself, sat on the edge of the bed and tucked Tomas back in, saying in my most soothing and quiet voice that there were no such things as monsters. He had me adjust his nightlight, and I promised to leave the bedroom door open so he could hear his brother and me in the living room. By this time, Hamlet was calling to me to come back. It was my turn to spin. I said goodnight to Tomas and returned to the board game. We finished a few minutes after 9:30, and Hamlet bounded up the stairs to get into his PJs. He was good about getting into bed and didn't want my assistance. He's a big kid, he often told me. I went to the TV room above the garage, where I wouldn't disturb the boys, to watch another episode of NCIS. I was addicted to crime mysteries, so I left the door open a crack just in case I was needed. I had just settled on the sofa in front of the TV when I heard Tomas's cries again. I paused the show and went into his room. He was buried underneath his covers. I said, "Tomas, I'm here." And again he stated, "There's a monster in the closet." This time I asked, "Why do you think there is a monster in the closet?" He very soberly looked at me and, in a hushed voice, said, "I can hear it breathing." "Would you like for me to check?" I asked. "No, he responded, quivering in my arms. "It's in there." I snuggled with him on his pillow, hoping to calm him. We sat quietly together, and the house was silent. I was just about to say goodnight for the third time when I heard it. A little rasping air and a stir of something came from the closet, as if someone was shifting their body weight. I whispered to Tomas, "Stay silent and come with me." I picked him up, and he held his arms around me tightly. We quietly left the room. As we passed Hamlet's room, I opened the door and called him to follow us quietly. We entered the master bedroom and went into the master bath, where we could lock the door. I called their mom and asked if they had had any problems with raccoons or stray cats in the house. She said, "No, why do you ask?" I said we were hiding in her bathroom with the door locked. I heard breathing and movement in Tomas's closet. She sounded very concerned and asked if I could go back into the bedroom with the phone and let her hear the sound. I snuck back to the bedroom, and the closet door was open. It was definitely closed when I took Tomas out of the room. It was all the evidence I needed. Someone was in the house with us. I passed the balcony on my way back to the children and felt a gust of air. I looked over the edge of the balcony, which gave me a view of the front hall and doorway. The door was wide open. Whoever was in the closet had made their escape. The children's mother said she was on her way and the police had been called. Lock yourself in the bathroom and wait for the police. No one was found in the house, but there was evidence that someone had been standing in the closet. The kid's mom speculated it was her ex, who was Tomas's father. He did have a history of violence, and he had several charges of breaking and entering and other crimes. However, there was no way to prove that he was the intruder, but from the stories, I knew he had to be evil. I was no longer comfortable babysitting, as this chilling nightmare left a lifetime scar. Babysitting in urban environments brings its own set of perils. I often envy babysitters in suburban homes, playing in the yard, walking home in the dark, leaving the windows open for fresh air, settling down in front of the TV until the parents came home. All that seemed like a pleasant way to spend an evening with a toddler and get paid. But that's not my life and not my story. I'm a kid in Germantown, a neighborhood in Philadelphia. It's 6 miles from the center of Philadelphia. Still, it's urban, with all the urban decay of large cities and decent areas. I live on one of the decent streets. Houses are maintained for the most part, and good families live here. However, the unsavory sometimes comes frighteningly close. I babysit for a 4-year-old toddler whose parents have a hectic work schedule. The boy is quiet, and I appreciate that because it makes my job a cakewalk. He plays with his toys and builds little things. He likes to build forts with the couch, pillows, and sheets, and will play there for hours with his cars and dinosaurs. We got along well, and he seemed to like me, and I certainly liked him. One Saturday afternoon, I arrived on schedule at 3 o'clock for his parents to take their shift until midnight. I had the usual instructions: dinner at 5, no snacks after 7, and bed at 8. The first several hours went as usual. At 5, I prepared dinner and sent Hamlet to the bathroom to wash his hands before eating. When he returned, he inquired about the noises coming from the basement. I was confused and said I didn't hear anything. Come, let's eat. But as we ate at the kitchen table, Hamlet continued, "I think it's a monster living in the basement." "Why do you think that, Hamlet?" I pursued. "Because it always moves around making noises. Sometimes it scares me. Sometimes when I'm sleeping, it's talking. I think when you're in bed, you hear the TV that I'm watching in the living room," I speculated. Hamlet looked at me and said, "I hear that too, but the monster sounds different. It just grumbles." At 8 o'clock, I put Hamlet to bed and retired to the living room. I left the TV off on purpose to prove my point. In a second, Hamlet came crying from his room. He was scared and trembling. "The monster is here," he cried. I picked him up and we sat on the couch. I tried to soothe him when he said, "Hear it?" We sat still, and I heard a movement from beneath the floor. These old houses have basements, but they're just for the furnace, water heater, and some storage. I assured Hamlet that it was probably a cat or something that had gotten into the basement. I told him to wait on the couch and I would go investigate. I entered the kitchen, opened the basement door cautiously, and flicked on the light. The basement was filled with boxes, bags of old clothes, and discarded toys. I walked down a few steps and scanned the room. All was still. I returned to Hamlet and again assured him all was fine and put him back to bed. I sat in the living room, scrolling through Facebook for the next hour until Hamlet appeared carrying his blanket again. "The monster," he sobbed. I listened intently, and there it was, much louder this time, something much bigger than a cat. I softly opened the basement door, stepped down 3 steps, and flicked the lights on. To my sheer terror, a man stood in the center of the box-cluttered room, stark naked. He had a blanket and was preparing a large box with it. I ran back up the 3 steps, slamming and bolting the door. Dialing the police, I grabbed Hamlet and ran to the neighbors together. The police arrived and Hamlet's parents came shortly after. Searching the basement, they found evidence of someone living there for some time. The outside basement access door was found with a broken lock. It was the door used originally for coal delivery to heat the house, but hadn't been used by the homeowners in decades. I've been paranoid about babysitting for a while now. The most terrifying thing about this was that the man was never caught. He could be living in someone else's basement right now without them even suspecting.
Subscribe.